He stood frozen in the middle of the office lobby, one hand gripping a cardboard box, the other holding his daughter's small fingers as tightly as if letting go might make her disappear. Around him, people moved as if nothing had happened, phones buzzing, shoes clicking against marble floors, but his world had just collapsed. His manager's words still echoed in his head, sharp and unforgiving, company policy. No children, you're done. His daughter looked up at him with confused eyes, too young to understand why her father's face had gone pale, why his voice trembled when he whispered that everything would be okay. That morning had started like any other, except the babysitter never showed up. He had called her again and again, panic growing with every unanswered ring. Missing work meant losing pay, and losing pay meant missing rent. With no other choice, he brought his daughter with him, promising himself she'd sit quietly, color in her book, stay invisible. She tried so hard to behave, feet swinging beneath the desk, crayons neatly lined up. But invisibility is impossible in a world that refuses to see compassion. The complaint came quickly. A supervisor noticed the child. A meeting was called. He didn't even get to explain properly. The rules were read out loud, cold and final, as if they mattered more than hunger, more than fear, more than the quiet desperation of a single parent trying to survive. When they escorted him out, his daughter asked if she'd done something wrong. He swallowed hard and told her no, knowing the lie would hurt less than the truth. What he didn't know was that someone else had noticed them that day, not with annoyance, but with curiosity. A man sat in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the office floor, observing quietly. He wasn't dressed like the others, no badge clipped to his jacket, no company laptop in front of him. He was there as an investor, a silent observer evaluating culture, leadership, and values. And what he saw unsettled him far more than any financial report ever could. He watched as the father bent down, speaking softly to his daughter, brushing her hair back with a tenderness that spoke of long nights and early mornings. He saw the way the child clung to her father when security approached, how her small shoulders tensed in fear. In that moment, the investor stopped seeing numbers and policies. He saw himself, years ago, struggling, invisible, one mistake away from losing everything. Outside the building, the father sat on the steps, cardboard box at his feet. His daughter climbed into his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. He stared at the street, wondering how he would explain this to his landlord, how he would buy groceries, how he would tell his daughter that promises don't always come true. He didn't cry, he couldn't afford to. Instead, he planned, calculating which bills could wait, which couldn't, how to stretch what little he had left. From a distance, the investor watched him leave. Something in his chest tightened. This wasn't just a bad management decision, it was a failure of humanity. He made a phone call that same afternoon, his voice calm but firm. He asked questions no one else dared to ask. Who authorized the termination? Why was there no flexibility? What did the company stand for beyond profit? The answers disappointed him, but they also clarified something he'd known for a long time. That night, the father tucked his daughter into bed in their small apartment, smiling even though his heart felt heavy. She asked if they could have pancakes in the morning. He said yes, already wondering how to make that happen. After she fell asleep, he sat in the dark, scrolling through job listings, rejection already settling in his bones. He didn't know that somewhere across the city, a decision was being made that would change everything. The next morning, his phone rang. An unfamiliar number. He almost ignored it, assuming it was another automated rejection or bill collector. But something made him answer. The voice on the other end was calm, respectful. The man introduced himself not as a billionaire, not as an investor, but simply as someone who had been watching. He said he'd like to meet. No interviews, no conditions, just a conversation. They met in a quiet cafe. The father brought his daughter again, apologizing out of habit. The man smiled and waved it away, ordering her hot chocolate and pancakes. They talked, not about resumes or qualifications, but about life. About responsibility, about what it means to choose between being a good employee and a good parent. The investor listened more than he spoke, and when he finally did, his words carried weight. He revealed the truth slowly. He wasn't just an observer. He owned a controlling stake in the company. He had seen everything, the firing, the indifference, the failure, and he had decided that a company willing to punish compassion didn't deserve its leadership. The father sat frozen, unsure whether to believe him, while his daughter happily stacked pancake pieces into a smiley face. The investor slid a folder across the table. Inside wasn't a termination reversal, it was something far bigger. A new position, higher pay, flexible hours, on-site childcare, not just for him, but as a pilot program for the entire company. The investor explained that businesses don't fail because of kindness, they fail because they forget why people work in the first place. Tears filled the father's eyes, uninvited and unstoppable. He tried to speak, to say thank you, to explain what this meant, but the words wouldn't come. The investor gently stopped him. You didn't need saving, he said. You needed someone to stop looking away. The daughter reached across the table and held her father's hand, sensing something good had happened even if she didn't understand why. Within weeks, the company changed. Managers were replaced, policies rewritten, training introduced that emphasized empathy alongside performance. Employees noticed, productivity rose, loyalty deepened, and at the center of it all was a man who once sat on the steps with a cardboard box, now walking through the same doors with his daughter's drawing framed on his office wall. He never forgot that day. He never forgot how close he came to losing everything because of a rule that refused to bend. He made it a point to notice others the way someone had finally noticed him. Single parents, struggling workers, people holding their lives together with quiet strength. He learned that leadership isn't about authority, it's about responsibility. The investor remained mostly invisible, preferring impact over recognition. He didn't want headlines, he wanted change, and when asked why he intervened, he gave a simple answer: because I was once fired for needing to be human. His fortune had given him power, but his past had given him purpose. Years later, the daughter would barely remember the fear of that day. What she would remember was pancakes with a stranger who smiled kindly, a father who never gave up, and a moment when the world proved it could be fair after all. She would grow up believing kindness wasn't weakness, it was strength. For the father, success never meant money alone. It meant being present, it meant choosing love without apology. And every time he saw an employee walk in with a child, he felt a quiet pride knowing no one would ever be punished for being a parent again. Some stories are about luck, others are about rescue, but this one was about seeing, truly seeing, another human being when it mattered most. About how one quiet observer changed countless lives simply by refusing to accept cruelty as normal. He was fired for bringing his daughter to work, but what the company lost that day was far greater than an employee. And what the secret millionaire saw was something priceless, a reminder that the greatest investments are not in businesses, but in people.